Okay, I just want to make sure without the chairman here, and we asked about this last week, there's no appointed deputy chair. So without the chairman here, are you all okay with us proceeding without him as a group? Is that okay? I don't want to violate any protocol, so we're good with that?
We're good, because he can see the recording if necessary, right?
Okay, good. So I don't have a long list, thank you. So that's good. Just a couple things of import. So the feasibility study is formally being reviewed at division and headquarters. They're doing it concurrently, which is good because they're trying to move forward. As I have been told that there is a draft chief's report being circulated. So not only are they looking at reviewing the feasibility report, people have started to turn this over into a draft chief's report. Again, that is what the chief of engineers will eventually sign if he's happy with it, and all the technical and policy reviews are conducted and everyone agrees. So that's good. Their target is still a signature from the chief on the draft chief's report by the end of May. Until we hear otherwise, that is what they're intending. So that would be good. And then again, just remind everyone, once the chief signs the report, it would go to the White House and to the congressional authorizers. So the committees in Congress with authority over water resources policy to create the authorization for the PED phase. And then that would be approved. And then in the appropriations process in the fall for fiscal year 23, they would have to appropriate the money for the PED study. So there's a number of hurdles there. And then again, after that occurs, the Army Corps would say, okay, we're ready to negotiate a design agreement with the city. And then that's a negotiation, and that could take a little bit of time. And then if all that were to occur, so there's a bunch of ifs, if all that were to occur, we in theory could start PED in about a year. Again, there's a lot of hurdles and nothing's guaranteed, but that's where we are right now on the 3x3 or the Army Corps feasibility study. Perhaps more exciting for me, maybe for you, but certainly for me, is the water plan procurement is, as they say, on the streets. Worked hard on it over the last 4, 5, 6 weeks. Kicked it around with some experts looking at it. I'm happy with it. It's a 35-day procurement, so the interested teams or interested firms will have until May 5th to respond, and after that, we will go through a selection process. A review and a selection process that could take a little bit of time. If you want to know more about how that works, I'll tell you. There are 2 components to the water plan. One component is the water plan, right? So an integrated comprehensive water plan for the entire city. And the second component of the procurement is an owner's agent possibility for the same team doing the water plan to also serve or to be tasked by the city. Of course, funding would be needed, but tasked by the city to do pre-PED, PED, resilience plan, or other water management work. So we've created a vehicle that if we are happy with this team that we eventually procure, they could do components of work for us if we choose so, without having to procure separately. That just allows you to get the work a lot faster. So, and then it also allows, in the consulting world, as you may or may not know, is when you have a procurement and the best team that you have comes from somewhere else, their mobilization time, like they have to learn, again, as I joke, they have to learn where the bathrooms are. They have to learn the physical landscape, you know, the political landscape, the cultural landscape, the water challenges, and it takes them a while to ramp up. And that's something you look at in a procurement assessment or team selection. This owner's agent possibility within the Army, within the water plan procurement, will enable us to be more efficient with that if we're happy with the company, with the team to do that work. So
Hey, Dale.
Yes.
Sorry, two questions. One is, would that be a vehicle for the Rosemont Resilience Plan?
It is a possible vehicle. It's named in the water plan, in the scope of work, that is possible. What we have to see is we will get a number of responses from interested firms or teams. We're going to select the best one for the water plan, right? And then we will see if we want them to do the resilience plan. That's an if, right? And then, as you may know, within this tight labor market right now, firms sometimes don't have the capacity in-house to do everything we may ask them to do. So you have to see if one, would they be good for it? And two, do they have the capacity to do it? Because our number one priority would be the water plan. And the Rosemont Resilience Plan is also very important, but we can procure that separately if we need to, because it is a slightly different skill set. Okay.
Got it. Hey, second question. We had discussed at the last meeting and a draft was circulated on an acceleration of the water plan via additional supplemental funding. What, and maybe this is a question to Haygood if he's on, what happened to that?
Well, I'll speak from my perspective. You can't accelerate the work too much because there's a lot of stuff you need to gather in before you can start to do your assessment. So what we have, the schedule of work that is in the scope is 9 months. So from the start of their work, so after they're contracted, in 9 months we would have a draft interim water plan, and then no later than 15 months we would have a water plan. Okay, so again, we'd have to make sure that that is possible. That is our goal, as communicated in this work. The issue that I saw was the amount of money that council thankfully had allocated last year to this project was insufficient to the broader task of a comprehensive integrated water plan. And there was a thirst, certainly by myself, to get a good water plan, and others to top up the $500,000 that the city council had provided for the water plan with additional funds. We have had discussions within the mayor's office and with the CFO about how we do that. We think that's doable. We think that's going to happen, and the scope of work for the water plan for budget would be between $500,000 and $1 million. So we know there is money available in some places. CFO, so we think that's certainly doable and possible. But again, that's going to be a council decision to allocate that money, but it is probably needed.
So this group does not want to provide encouragement for that process of finding additional funds, which is fine. I'm just wondering. I thought there was a fair amount of support, enthusiasm for throwing whatever our weight is, but throwing our weight behind, let's get this done resourcefully, creatively, however you want to characterize it.
Yeah. A recommendation from the advisory committee to the city council, or
yeah,
you want to forward it to, would be, in Dale Morris's opinion, be welcome.
Process-wise, Bob, I think from the action items left from the last meeting, there was a call for the finance working group and the communications working group to get together on the respective leftover items. From the emails, I think that we were copied on, I believe that the finance working group probably couldn't find schedules to get together. So I think that might have been what happened between the last meeting, but that's just from a process-wise step. I think the finance folks were going to try to get together to talk about that. And then I think maybe schedules didn't align, but I'll let anybody else. I think Cashin was, as the leader of that one, maybe she has some input.
Yes, I'm the dutiful leader of the finance group. We have not met, and I'm happy. Bob is a member of that group, so I'm happy to circle up with Bob and Jordy, and I think Doug was a member of our group as well afterward if we want to pull a group together. But I would be supportive of us moving forward with a recommendation to council to use that second tranche of funding to support having a better water plan, more comprehensive water plan.
Can you all just draft a resolution and send the copy around and we can vote?
It was sent, yeah, it was sent. I think the day of our last meeting.
So perhaps it would make sense, Cash, and if you're able to get a majority of folks from your working group to review that and then send that around. And then if we need to, we'll be scheduled for another meeting in a month, but if we need to call folks together to vote on that prior to that, then we can do that. And we'll work with the chair to make that happen if that works.
Works for me.
Great. I will list that in our outline.
Great. Good.
Dale, I've got a question if this is a good time.
Sure.
How, just maybe I'd like to report back to our group. How is the egress down Haygood being for when high water before PED? Is the city working on Haygood as far as high water, elevated where the traffic can get through if there's flooding, or is that something that has to go through PED and is years away?
So, I mean, Haygood and Fishburne, that funny intersection you have over there, the one that looks like a war zone. Yeah. No. So again, we know why that area is bumpy. There are a lot of reasons for that, but we can dig into those. That would not be part of PED. PED is related to the Army Corps project. This would be a separate drainage project, or and again the connection, the possible connection from West Edge with a drainage pipe into the Spring Fishburne tunnel would help manage some of that, but you're still going to have, there are still some other issues over there that need to be assessed. That is what the water plan would look at that basin and say, okay, in relation to, as a separate project, this deserves this kind of attention, and why, whether that's elevation or something else, that's a TBD, right? That's what the water plan team would do. The interface of that with the Army Corps project would only occur if they were saying to dump more water from that area through the Army Corps wall, if you get that far, right? That's where those two things would interface. But I think for now they're separate.
Well, we just want to continue to, through various committees and groups, to keep a high priority, because even after the seawall's built, if there's flooding, that's you can get to the interstate that direction and get ambulances in and out. So and staff. So appreciate it.
Right. So what I would suggest, and I will carry it for you, but if the medical district or you, Dennis, want to, so the city is working with the county right now on the development of its own hazard mitigation plan. Of course, evacuation, those are parts of this. So that could be a very clear recommendation that we need to make sure that our evacuation routes are resilient also, or, that there's redundancy in our evacuation processes, and this is one way. So, I mean, I think that would be good for you to share that. And then you can share that with me once you have an idea about that. And then I will share it with the emergency management team here and with the emergency management folks in the county, because I think this is important.
All right, I'll get back with you offline. Thank you.
All right. Then let me offer this. The water plan procurement is probably, 40 pages long. A lot of it is the legal boilerplate that goes along with the procurement. The scope of work is probably 7 or 8 pages, if I recall, 6, 7, 8 pages. I'm happy to send you a link to the procurement on the website, and then you can look at at the good stuff, what I call the good stuff. So you can look at that if you want. It's out on the street, so we're not going to change it, but you can look and see what we're doing if you would like that.
That's good.
Okay, got it. Then two more quick items. The committee made a recommendation that we should pursue a resilience plan with the community of Rosemont. Over the last month, we've had 2 meetings with the community in person in the community, with them constituted in different fashions, but that is proceeding. We are working with LAMC, the Low Area Alliance for the Low Country Alliance for Model Communities, which is a nonprofit that has worked with them, but with other environmental justice communities. So that is all moving forward. We are trying to find ways to fund that with a combination of both city money and nonprofit money. We have various ideas. You can see the nickels and dimes coming together, as I joke. So it's going to happen. When we would procure it is still a TBD. It depends on when we would get some of this grant funding. And again, grant funding has its own cycle, but our goal is still to start this, you know, in the summer or afterwards. And it's not going to be next month, but it'll be sometime in 2022. We would hope to be able to start this. So that is moving nicely. And all that I would say is it feels pretty good. There's good collaboration, and we're building trust with the community. And I think they're being very active in building their own capacity to engage and think through this with us. And in the highest sense of the goal here is we would co-write the scope of work or the deliverables with the community for the resilience plan. So it would not be top down, it would not necessarily bottom up, it would be together. So that's our goal. And it seems to be moving pretty well. And then my final two things, and they're short. The city, the Nature Conservancy, and Clemson Design Center have been planning a nature-based feature series. This will kick off in middle of May this year, almost next month, middle of May. It'll be 4 or 5 sort of workshops over time. The first one is just to set the stage, but we're doing that. We're hoping just to tease out and show people what nature-based speakers are, what they're not, how they work, what are the challenges for getting them into projects and the design, getting them costed right, how they perform. There's a lot of good things here that we're trying to tease out for ourselves, but also show with the community what we're doing. So be aware of that. It's pretty exciting, I think. And then my final item is, so you all are going to discuss an update to the document, the communications document that you developed last fall, and an update to it. If you would like, we are happy to have that, ask the neighborhood services folks to distribute that across the city with a weekly email blast. We're happy to ask the information officer to do a social media push, 1 or 2 things like that. So if you want that, we're happy to do it. Happy to help you with that. Okay.
We want that.
Okay. And then one final thing, you all recommended that, you know, we need to talk more about what we're doing, that the city doesn't communicate well. I've heard that a lot. So we've had a discussion with neighborhood services. We're planning for them to push out an email or some sort of communication to all the neighborhood associations and councils citywide to say, hey, if you want Kaylin or I, or whatever, to come talk about the water plan, the comp plan, the 3x3, we're happy to do that. If you all, someone from this committee wants to come along with that, when we schedule them, you're welcome. So, and that's all I have.
Hey, Dale, so as a qualification to what you just offered, does that, at what point do we start more active advocacy as opposed to communication? If there's a distinction there, I think there may be. What's the marketing program, the PR program in terms of roles, responsibilities, content, just, communication, points of order from various meetings and process developments, and that's all pretty sterile. If we've identified that we've got an issue or concern with the amount of support for this, big endeavor, how do we start making a difference there?
I want to respect the committee's authority and jurisdiction here. I think what I would like to do, and what I've heard from you, is to communicate where we are, what this is and what it is not. And to shorthand it, we're not buying a gray wall. So, you know what I mean? I want to communicate that to the rest, to the other parts of the city, like we did with various neighborhood associations in January and February, right? You were part of one, you suggested one. I want to do more of that as an information service. And again, what it becomes is some people, there's a sense that I have picked up that some people think this is a done deal and, we're just going to roll over, right, to the core. That's how some people feel about this. And other people are like, this is stupid, why would we want to do this? And I think, it's something in between, right? So that's what I want to do, is explain what this is and where we are and where we are not, and then engage the community that way as an information. For advocacy, I think the committee's jurisdiction or thoughts on that would be welcome, how you want to do that. And if you recommend that we do this together, I think this is, I would welcome it, but I don't want to, I think you all as a committee have to decide that that's what you want to do. Because, I do think, like in the community, there is still not, 110% support for, embracing PED. Fair point, right? So maybe the committee should talk about this offline.
Yeah, I think this is actually a good segue into our next agenda item, which is the update from the communications working group. And Susan, would you mind, since you're heading that communications up, to kind of give the overview to the rest of the committee about the conversations had over the past month, and then the hard work that you've been working on to update that? And then I think that can segue and address some of the issues Bob brought up, if that works.
Sure. So we all talked about updating the big white paper, as it's called. And then we talked about doing a quick one-pager. So I have updated both and sent them to the small communications group to see, and Dale has vetted them for accuracy. And I think we should send it out at this point to the full group for approval and distribution, both of them. I'm not sure where the short form will go, and if that's a different distribution than the whole long form, but we should have both, and we should distribute both, I believe. It basically brings the project from a strictly educational, informational standpoint up to date, pretty much, from where it was some months ago. So if everybody agrees with that, we could just move ahead with the process of doing it. Doug is not on, I guess, but he was very helpful in producing the documents. So I'll call him after this meeting if we agree that that's a good idea.
And I'll just jump in here, since I served on the committee with Susan. And first, y'all, she's done the lion's share of this piece, and I think it's really, really well done. It's very well balanced. It's very informative. The FAQs are spot on. So I just encourage you to review it. We've had many eyes on it, but it always helps to have some more. And I think it's a good thing to use and roll out, as Dale was talking about, the meetings with the neighborhoods and the workshops starting in May. I think that that's good timing if we can get this approved and produced. And Doug was fantastic in offering and producing a printed version of it earlier that was really marketable and nice and neat and pretty and all that. So I think it's a great piece. I think it's going to go a long way to, really educating the community about what's going on and maybe dispelling some of that misinformation that's out there. So if we could do this in a timely fashion to where we could meet that May schedule, that would be great. And again, thanks to Susan for taking it on. She did a great job and showed her many, many years of skills are not rusty. They're great. So
little rusty.
Not at all. You did a great job.
You're blushing, Susan.
Oh, I know. Not supposed to see that on Zoom.
And Susan, as Dale mentioned, you questioned how it could be distributed. If the committee would like it distributed in two different fashions, that's something we can do too. And as well as like how we post it on the website, as we talked about at the working group, that's something where we can have two different links for the different updates and label them as the committee and the working group sees fit. So that's not an issue. I mean, if you have 2 things, 3 things, 4 things, however you want, our communications team has told us that whatever we send your way from y'all, they're ready to push out. So that won't be an issue.
That's good. Maybe we should get the short form out real fast, since it won't have graphics and stuff. It's basically just copy, and then ask Doug if he can work on the graphics for the 3 or 4 pager as it comes along, if there are any changes in it. Does that work? Sort of use the short form as like a teaser, or just for people who don't want to read very much.
I think that's good.
Is everybody in agreement? Yes, good. I would ask Carolyn then, did I send them both to you? I think I did.
If you can resend the final versions, and then in my follow-up notes, I will send that out to the whole committee.
Okay, great.
And then just have folks, I would say as a reminder, we can't respond all to our emails. So if any additions or changes, just share them directly to Susan. Absolutely. And then Susan, once you have a final version, then share it with me, and I'll get that out to folks.
Great. Thank you all.
So in the interim, Kaylin has posted the link to the water plan procurement in the chat. So for shorthand purposes, look at page 22, which is what is the, so when you open this link, this document, page 22 has the submission requirements for the offerer, so to speak. So what we're seeking from them. Page 24 has the evaluation criteria that we will review them and select a team from that. I mentioned before, I just want to confirm that I have recommended that someone from this advisory committee sit on the evaluation committee for the water plan procurement. That is the mayor's decision. It is not mine, but I have made that recommendation given that there's an interest here. So we'll go from there. The challenge is with any team effort is the more team members you have, the harder it is to coordinate schedules. And there is a very detailed legal process required for the evaluation of proposals for procurement. And so, everyone has to be there, and everyone has to open it at the same time. There's all kinds of things that have to occur. So the more people you put on an evaluation committee, the harder it is to organize it expeditiously. So there's a balancing there, but I do think it would be wise, or would be good if someone from the committee would be part of that process. And it requires a whole bunch of reading. But just to let you know, it is not a labor of love. It's a lot. So, and then the scope of work is on page 25 to 29 on this document. So there you'll see what we're asking the consultant team to do. for the water plant and the owner's agent for the other things. So enjoy.
Okay, I mean, we just had the communications was the one discussion item. I don't know if any of the other committee members have any other discussion items they'd like to bring up before we have perhaps one of our quickest meetings on record, but I'll throw it out to any other folks that want to bring any other discussion items up.
I have one other thing. We had vaguely talked about having a public meeting where Dale and others potentially could address the community at large about what's going on with the 3x3 and the water plan. Is that still something that Groundswell was going to share that with you, with the city, if that looked like something we wanted to do? Is that still on the table?
I'm happy to do things like that. Let's find the timing of that, because we will have this offer out to the neighborhood associations, and maybe none of them want us to do that. That's possible, right? No, thank you, but no, thank you. Let's see. Right. But if you want to do that, we need to share information about this. What it is and what it isn't, and where we are, what's possible and what's not. So I'm happy to do that. So I will follow your lead. I pretty much say yes to people asking me to talk about this and the water plan and comprehensive plan and other things we're doing.
I think, Haygood, are you on? Do I see your name?
Hey, I am on. I've just been on mute. I tried to chat. Sorry, my voice is shot. But point is that I've reached out to Clemson to see if we could hold it there. I'm sort of on a board there, but it's a different board. So they're putting me in touch with the right people. Is the short version. So whenever we kind of get everything finalized and get a date, that is something I'll see if we can do. I haven't gotten full confirmation yet, but we're running the traps on it now.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear where you said you were reaching out to.
Oh, so the person that runs the program at Clemson that I'm affiliated with, right, is putting me in touch with the right person for the space here.
Okay, good. Do you have a timeline on that?
No, I think whenever we want to do it date-wise, maybe, I don't know, maybe by next meeting we'll have clarification, or maybe sooner. I think you and me just download later on when we actually want to have it, now that we have a document and information that's approved.
Okay. Cashin?
If the Clemson space doesn't work out, we can use our community room here at HCF.
Great.
I mean, it's smaller.
That'd be a really cool space for it. It's very relevant too.
Right on the water.
Right on the water.
Let's pick a rainy day.
Yeah, the one consideration, it's just a refinement process, thought process. So again, the Army Corps process is moving forward. If we get a chief's report, that would be a moment, because that's a threshold. So maybe after that, because if we don't get a chief's report,
it's moot.
We've all enjoyed each other's company and whatever. So let's see if that happens. And maybe at the same time, if we have been able to secure the water plan team, we could have one of those folks come and be part of that discussion, because then you have whatever, your two birds, one stone, or whatever the appropriate saying is. So,
and that chief's report you expect potentially when?
So we hear May 22nd, 24th, somewhere around then.
Okay, maybe the last week in May. Some people still leave here in June.
Right.
But a lot of people don't. So yeah, whatever works.
Yeah, and it, again, whatever we do, it can also be recorded. So.
Right. Do they let you know sort of ahead of time, or do they just tell you on that date?
No, there's this draft chief's report is circulating internally.
Yeah.
Once, the district here will tell us, hey, well, it looks like it's got this approval, that approval, that approval, and now it's with the chief. Will we get those kind of updates? Or, hey, it's going to fall apart? I mean, we'll get those kind of updates, but we don't know what goes on a day-to-day basis.
Okay.
But the end of May is still the target. So.
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right. Hey, good. So we'll talk later.
Yes, that sounds good. I'm yes, yeah, let's do that. Let's talk probably does Friday might be a good day to do it, or Monday, early next week.
Okay, you let me know. I'll wait to hear from you.
Okay. Sorry. Okay, that sounds good.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, and just looking at the calendar and the action items we have regarding the finance language and the updates with the working group, the communications working groups. Potentially our next meeting would be April the 20th, but we will, if we need to meet before then the chair will let me know and we can figure that out. City council isn't meeting yet until the 12th. So obviously we don't like to have our meetings after the city council meetings. That's an early morning for our members. So just tentatively hold the Wednesday, the 20th, same time. And I know, Dale, if you want to talk about quickly, we were strategizing about in this kind of lull with the Army Corps of what kind of productive discussions we can have with the committee. And we thought it may be beneficial for you all to hear from some of the other cities that are going through this process as well. So Norfolk perhaps has a lot of interesting updates. So either next meeting or maybe in May, depending on when they're ready to go public with some of their updates, we thought it may be beneficial to have basically the Dale of Norfolk come and speak to you all and present what they're going through and some of the flexibility provided by the Corps, if that would be of interest for the committee to hear as well.
I think that sounds great.
We can get a couple of those folks that are fussing around with the Corps like we are. We can get a couple of those folks from those places to join us for 20 or 30 minutes and tell us where they are. It'd be great. And the Dale of Norfolk is an old friend of mine. So anyway, his name's Kyle and he's great. So, and then one other thing, Cashin, you and I have been kicking around this idea for a speakers series, and we have one lined up already, and that's your goal, that's your project, but do you want to say anything to this committee about it?
Sure, I would love to have the committee participate. We wanted to host a water dialogues, HCF wanted to host a water dialogue series because we had a lot of important conversations about the 3x3 project, but we also wanted to talk about some other aspects of water and water risk and planning for water. And so we have proposed doing sort of one a quarter, a virtual webinar with a Q&A component. We missed Q1, but we have our first one set actually for April 20th at 4 p.m. And Dale has very kindly availed his wonderful network of very smart people to participate in these webinars. So our first speaker will be Carolyn Kiewski. She's at Wharton. And I would encourage you to Google her and look at some of her work because she's really fascinating in the way that she looks at community risk and vulnerable communities, underserved communities. And so we're really excited about this water dialogue. And we'll be pushing out an email probably later this week, maybe early next week, to our sort of global community. And it's free and open to the public. And then we're looking at waiting to confirm a date, but we'll probably have the next one in June. And it will look at resiliency planning, possibly from a statewide perspective. And so we're looking forward to that as well. We want to do one potentially that could pair with the city's proposed or planned zoning code overhaul that would look at elevation-based zoning, which is something that was recommended in the Dutch Dialogue's final report, and then further recommended in the city plan, which was just adopted last October. And then this zoning overhaul was funded in the city's budget this year, and will likely be a 2 to 3 year process. But I think it will be good to sort of inform that conversation. And then lastly, we want to do something on engineering with nature-based solutions. So, but if anybody has any suggestions of a topic that they'd really be interested in, we are open to it, and excited about the ability to deliver some good information to the community.
What's the Caroline's last name?
Kiewski, it's K-O-U-S-K-Y, Carolyn Kiewski.
Thank you.
She's brilliant. She's scary brilliant.
She is. When we had our initial call, I said, you know, we might need like, you know, a less sophisticated presentation so that we can, you know, not everybody is familiar with all these wonderful terms that you're using, including me. And so we may need sort of like the USA Today version.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
Thank you to HCF. That's wonderful.
Thank you to Dale for availing his network to us. He's super connected, if y'all did not know.
Kevin, I see your hand up. If you.
Yeah, thanks, Caitlin. I just wanted to share each member of the advisory committee should have received an invitation to an event that happens this Saturday evening. I know some of you have already RSVP'd to attend. It's the launch of a consortium called the Center of Resilience Excellence, South Carolina. CORE SC is the acronym. The founding partners are the College of Charleston, Charleston County Municipal Government, and the Aquarium. And one of the underlying intents of this exercise or this consortium is to attract NASA as an invested partner. They have centers of excellence around the country, a dozen or so, but none of them is focused specifically on issues related to resilience. So this would be a tremendous opportunity, both environmentally and economically, for the state. And we will have NASA members in attendance that evening. I share all this in part just to acknowledge that we will have a panel discussion that will examine local, regional, and state resilience issues. That includes the man who never rests, Dale Morris, as well as our board chair, Jonathan Zucker, Ben Duncan, who's the state's chief resilience officer, Kevin Limehouse from the county, and then Dr. Jose Nunez from NASA. So it is a Saturday evening. There are cocktails before and after. It's not all hardship. So if you're able to attend, it's not too late to RSVP. And thank you for those that are joining.
Thanks, Kevin. And Bob, I think you have your hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Caitlin. Hey, building on this notion of what can we accomplish as a group during this relative lull in the process, one of the gaps that we've identified in the past relates to visibility on the financial wherewithal question. Dale or Kaylin or Mike, any progress in terms of speculating on where we might find the funds to do, you know, the construction phase and all other aspects of this?
So I was waiting to see if Mike wanted to jump in. We are still working from the outline that we had before. Again, I want to be careful because I know Bob has strong opinions about this, but I want to get into, I personally think we need to start PED to see if we can get to a point where we can design the wall that we want. Because if we can't, then the construction point is moot, right? So again, that's how I'm looking at this. I do think we ought to, I'm happy to ponder with you, Bob, or with Councilman Seekings and others to figure out, okay, who would we bring in to help us understand this? Again, there's municipal finance issues, there's state funds, again, and you know, the state is developing a resilience plan, and Ben Duncan will speak at this event that Kevin just mentioned on Saturday. There is an allocation of resources going to be required from that state resilience plan for state issues and also to support local issues. So that's important. And then, you know, the federal government push that's out there, that it's there, it's going to take 5 to 7 years for that money to be absorbed in the economy. That you just can't push that much money out so quickly. So we have to find a way. How do we leverage that to help us support PED, which is a smaller ask, but construction, that would be really important. I think that's part of that conversation. But I'm happy, Bob and others, to let's brainstorm what kind of information we would want, if that's a series of collating documents or having a panel with this committee or something. So let's figure that out. I'm happy to help.
Okay. Yeah, I would tend to disagree that this is not something that we can kick down the road. In the Venn diagram of talking about communication and advocacy, one of the concerns of the public likely will be, how do we pay for this? And if our answer to that question is we'll figure that out later, I think that's going to feel inadequate. But yeah, let's maybe take it offline. I appreciate that conversation.
Yep.
I'm happy to jump in just really quickly on this. And that is, I think the question, Bob, from internally looking out at the city is going to be, how do we pay for all of this? You've got to add that all in there. And as we go through the water plan and other priorities that will be put forward, that's going to be the question. It's going to have to be much like I believe we need an integrated water plan. I do, and I think you all agree with that. We need an integrated economic feasibility plan and a finance plan as well. So, I mean, we're still wrestling on the front end with some short-term projects like low battery seawall, how we finance that. So I think I agree that we can't say we'll figure it out later, but we're going to have to put it in perspective and at least address from the financial side projects that we've got online right now that are still in need of funding. And we're going to have to get integrated politically with our funding partners at the county and at the state. And to me, that's the most important step to take going forward. I was in a very interesting meeting this week with the chairman of county council, and it reminded me, it had nothing to do with this, but it had something to do with a very important project that we need to partner with the county on. And that's the Ashley River Bike Ped Bridge. And we also need to partner with the state. And in that room was the Secretary of Transportation, the chairman of county council, and the mayor of the city of Charleston. It was a sort of a little bit of a political watershed moment for me to sort of look and see how when you do it cooperatively and you have a common goal, you can reach a solution, and we did. So I think that sort of political model is going to have to be integrated into how we think about finance for that's a $40 million project, and it was complicated. Think about what happens when you're looking at $1 billion to $2 billion for this, and there are other needs, wants, and desires out there. So the other thing I will tell you is it's been instructive. If you've been following this, it's so small it might not have hit your radar, but we've had some interesting discussions the last 2 city council meetings about financing a portion of a road improvement project, West Ashley on the Glen McConnell. And along the Glen McConnell corridor to the north is Lake Dotterer, which is an artificial man-made lake, but it creates lots of problems with flooding in that part of West Ashley. And along with the Glen McConnell widening and improvement project, there is some things that we can do short and long term to give some flooding relief. And none of that was built into the project. Mercifully, one of our council members picked up on that, got out ahead of it, brought it back to council, and to make what's already been way too long a story short, we collectively worked with the county to come up with a solution to add some infrastructure for flooding relief in the road improvement project that will actually, when the entire project is completed some years down the road, will give West Ashley something they've been wanting a long time. And again, the financial model, which will be agreed to, we hope with any luck at all tomorrow at the county council level, is for the city and the county to split the cost of the added infrastructure to what otherwise was just a road improvement project that no one was paying attention to, but really it had a huge opportunity for water relief. So I tell you those couple of anecdotal stories to tell you that I think, Bob, and everybody else in this committee, and I think Dale, I see him nodding his head, and we're going to talk later today. When it comes to finance, we are going to have to start having serious conversations right now with other funding partners, governmental funding partners. So that's my 2 cents worth, for whatever it's worth.
Thanks,
Thank you, Councilman. Any other last thoughts for the meeting to bring up before the group, before we adjourn for the morning? Okay, well, please stay tuned for my email follow-up that, besides the normal notes, will also include the document from Susan for everyone to review. And those of you on the finance working group, please stay tuned for an email from Cashin to get together for Bob's suggestion of that recommended additional funding language. And please hold April 20th for your calendar, but I will send that out in an email too. All right, well, thank you all and have a great day.
Thank you.